So you could go to work that day and there would be like an arm on a tray, and then they would start dissecting it. They'd peel back the skin, you draw it. They'd peel back like some tendons and stuff, and then you draw it and draw specific things. And you had to be pretty accurate.
What happened? What changed him like that? I don't know. Something he saw, I guess.
Are you ready for it? This is another inspiring artist interview on the Pencil Kings podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Bowler. Let's get to it. Today, we get another great guest, Shane Madden. How you doing, Shane?
I'm great. How you doing, Mitch?
I'm really jazzed to talk to you because we had so many great conversations about, working on art and our different experiences and similarities in our paths. So to start off, could you tell people just a little bit about yourself and kind of like what you're working on now so they get a sense of who Shane Madden is?
Sure. I've been working full-time as an artist since I was about 16. So that's about 20 years of slaving away with a pencil or a paintbrush or stylus. I was actually went to school to be originally as an animator, and I just, for me, it wasn't working because I can't just draw the same thing over and over and over again. As much as I loved growing up watching Disney and all that kind of thing, it wasn't my cup of tea. So I actually trained as a technical illustrator. A technical illustrator focuses on more informational type illustrations, less about story or the pretty picture or the salesiness of it, and more giving information on how to use a product or how something works, that sort of thing.
So like if we hop in our car, open the glove box, look at the manual, and those, like, somebody's actually drawing these car drawings. They're not just magically appearing for us.
It's even as simple as your IKEA manual on how to assemble something, all the way up to complex things on how landing gear of an aircraft works. So that's cool. It's kind of like a wide gamut of things. And also it includes things like textbooks. I did a lot of medical scientific textbooks, that sort of thing. So how the body works, the actual parts of the body, that sort of thing. We worked with cadavers and stuff like that. It's one of those things that people just don't know that genre exists of art, because it's not the flashy, fine arty or illustration or books and stuff like that. It's not the in-your-face stuff. It's that stuff that it needs to happen, and it helps give across information, helps like society grow and that sort of thing. But it's not like you go to school growing up being like, oh, I want to do instruction manuals. That industry has kind of gotten kind of transformed a little bit, especially with the advent of computers. When I trained in school, we didn't actually have Photoshop and that sort of thing. So my training is all like classically trained, gouache, airbrush, markers, paints, acrylics, all that kind of stuff. I didn't really get into actual digital art until after I graduated. So I have an interesting way of using technology. I think of technology more as like a tool rather than the technology actually creating the artwork itself. I think when I was in school, I think it was Photoshop 3 or something, not CS3.
There was a Photoshop 3 before.
Yeah.
For those of the listeners that don't remember a pre-CS world, there probably was a version 1 of Photoshop, but I know I started with 3 as well, and I have yet to meet somebody that started with version 1. I wonder what it was like.
It would be, honestly, I think it'd be pretty scary.
So tell people kind of what projects you're working on right now.
Sure. So now I would consider myself actually an illustrator. Most of my work now comes in doing covers for like books and novels and that sort of thing. I do a lot of covers for a company called Harlequin. They do a lot of romance novels. I also do covers for some games, card games, video games. And I would say that most of my work nowadays is actually illustration based. I do some production art and some concept art and stuff like that. But my meat and potatoes and what keeps the lights on is the actual illustration work and photo manipulation.
There's a lot of new artists that we talk with, and they go online and they find these websites, and it's mostly concept art. There's not a dedicated novel or book cover art website. These artists, they see that stuff, but they don't realize that there's this whole other art world out there. There's so much opportunity. And then they write to me and say like, hey, my dad or my mom, they really don't know about this art thing. They don't think I can make a career out of it. And I'm just like, that's totally wrong, because there's so much opportunity, and there's, art is everywhere, and you don't have to look very far, but it's like anything that you hold, touch, somebody's designing that, creating sketches for it, creating mock-ups, handing it off to industrial designers. And yeah, there's just a ton of opportunity. So for the people listening, and if you're in that position, I want you to know that there's so many viable careers as artists. And I think that's a good jumping off point, because I want to go back to when you started. And if I remember correctly, you graduated and then you were doing illustrations with cadavers, like not looking at photos of cadavers, but actual Leonardo da Vinci in the trenches cadavers.
Yeah, when I graduated, I was doing some instruction manuals and textbooks for universities, med schools, that sort of thing. Also, some pharmaceutical company marketing material, things of that nature for prosthetics or physiotherapy and that sort of thing. So we would actually be paired up with usually a med student, and you would go down into the anatomy museum, and they would practice their dissections, and you would actually like draw right from the cadaver. So you could go to work that day, and there would be like an arm on a tray, and then they would start dissecting it. They'd peel back the skin, you draw it. They'd peel back like some tendons and stuff, and then you draw it and draw specific things. And you had to be pretty accurate, because if you make a textbook and you move an artery even an inch too far in a certain way, you're teaching, hundreds or thousands of people to do it wrong, basically. And then they go out in the field and they're basically have misinformation. So you got to be really, really accurate, and all that stuff is vetted by professionals. They're probably the harshest critiques in the world. There's been a lot of times where it's like, oh, you have to move this part over an inch. And to most people, moving something an inch wouldn't be a big deal. But anybody who's done artwork for a long time knows that moving something an inch means probably redoing about half your drawing. So it's very humbling, especially when that's one of your first jobs.
And what was that like working in, you called it the Anatomy Museum?
It's usually in the universities, and it's the university hospitals. The one that we were particularly in, it was downstairs. So when it started to get dark out at nighttime, all you would hear is footsteps of people leaving and doors slamming and that sort of thing. Everybody trying to get out, that kind of thing. But it was fun. So you would go in, and they would have you set up for the day. They'd book you a room, and it was basically, it would look like a doctor's office kind of room. And you'd be paired up, and you just go and stare at it for hours and hours and draw. And I mean, to this day, I'm not good with needles. I don't like getting needles. I'm just like, I can't stand needles or cutting of skin or any of that stuff. I'm not good with it, but doing the cadaver stuff was actually, it was okay. I wouldn't say I was like, oh, this is so amazing. But it was good. I mean, it paid the bills. I learned a lot about medicine and anatomy and that sort of thing.
While you're down there working, are you guys listening to music, or can you describe the scene a little bit? I know it's a little bit macabre, but to me, the closest I have is I'm picturing like all these CSI or crime shows where they're in the morgue and they pull out the body, and now you're sitting there along with them with your easel or your tools, and they're kind of instructing you like, okay, now separate the rib cage and do this, and then you're just sitting there and sketching and looking intently.
I would say it's totally not what you would see on CSI. There's a lot of talking. With any art, I mean, a lot of people sit with headphones, or usually sometimes there's two or three artists working on the same thing in the same room. It's not like you're just stuck in a room with yourself or one other person in the dark with a single spotlight focused on somebody's arm or something like that. It's all bright and open, and you can control the lighting if you want. And it's like a cross between your normal doctor's office and what would you have in an art studio, that sort of thing.
Ah,
The
that
one
makes
thing that's
sense.
that you wouldn't think about also is a lot of the stuff that you would be drawing is usually not normal per se. So like you wouldn't draw like necessarily a healthy kidney. You would be drawing a diseased kidney, to get across what that's like. So things would have like cysts and growths and stuff on them. So it's not just like you're drawing the actual like skeleton and then the anatomy. There was some of that too, but there was also like more like diseased parts and that sort of thing. I only really did it for I would say about 6 months, but it was cool. It was fun.
Thought it was a fair gamble. Either I'd find myself or get it out of my system.
So that was the past. Let's fast forward to today now and talk about the book illustration that you're doing. Because when you told me that was Harlequin, I was really intrigued because I've obviously seen the novels when I'm in the library or grocery shopping. And now every time when I walk by the aisles and see the books, I'm like, is this one of Shane's? Did Shane do this? So tell me, how did you get started doing this?
I don't know. I kind of fell into it. It was kind of a case of the right place at the right time. I was cold emailing people, cold calling people, drumming up some extra work, and I happened to get in touch with in one of the art directors that works at Harlequin. They were going through this big rebranding. They're moving into more of a photo realistic with some illustrations. So a lot of them are like some photo retouching and that sort of thing. So a lot of it is like photo manipulation and that sort of thing, and photo bashing, I guess, slamming a bunch of things together. But it's really fun. It's really interesting, and a lot of the covers you just when I get the spec sheet for them, I just kind of giggle and laugh. Probably when I was a kid, I probably wanted to draw X-Men or something like that. I never would have thought, hey, I'm gonna do anatomy drawings, or I'm gonna be doing covers for Harlequin or things of that nature. It wasn't one of those things that I went to seek out. I just kind of fell into it, but I love it. Last year, I did somewhere around 100 covers. It's hard to keep track. When you're working constantly, you have no time to update your own portfolio or update your website, or you're just on to the next job, on to the next job, on to the next job kind of thing. So, but I think it was somewhere around 100 covers that I did just for Harlequin last year.
Wow. And since starting doing that, have you started to see other opportunities come to you because it's such a well-known brand and prolific brand?
Yeah, I mean, art directors are pretty close knit, so they talk to each other, and I like most of the my work comes from word of mouth. I'll do a job for somebody, and then they'll pass me along and pass me along, pass me along, pass me along. I taught college for a while. I taught college for 4 years teaching illustration, and I would always tell my students that word of mouth is the best, and networking is the best way to build your client base, because you already have an in, because somebody's already vouching for you in your work, and somebody likes your work and they pass you on. So I find that to be the best way, and that works really well. And it's opened other opportunities. I mean, it builds your portfolio, and it builds your portfolio into things that you wouldn't necessarily do. Or with Harlequin alongside, I've gotten tons of other jobs, especially doing like the photo manipulation, the photo editing. The one real thing, much like the video game industry and that sort of thing, a lot of photo manipulated stuff or photo edited stuff gets locked away. Like, nobody wants to say that they used Photoshop, right? Everybody wants to be like, oh, that we actually just took that picture. No one wants to own up to the black art of the Photoshop. Um, so there's actually like a ton of work, but there's also not a lot of I guess recognition sort of thing behind it. There's also the whole when you like are doing a cover and say that they set up a photo shoot with models and that sort of thing, and then you have to go in and like fix the models and fix all that kind of thing. It's kind of like they don't want the models to know that you kind of change things or fix things or move things around, because ultimately at the end of the day, these are the promotional material for these books. If the cover it doesn't grab you, you're not going to buy it. So the cover is basically a failure. I had a conversation with one of the art directors at Harlequin, and she basically blew my mind in telling me that their competition is movies, music, any kind of entertainment, because you can either read a book or you can go see a movie.
Mm-hmm.
You can either read a book or you can go listen to your CD. They're actually fighting for your entertainment time. And when she told me that, it just blew my mind. It's like, yeah, you have to make that choice on how you want to spend your time, and that's the most valuable thing that we have as human beings is our time, right?
Yep. There's a lot of people that I know as well that are looking for work. They don't have enough work. They just got laid off. But when I've talked to you in the past, it seems like that was never a concern for you, or you had this inner confidence about your stability, where a lot of artists that I talk to, they have very little confidence about their stability. Could you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, there's kind of like a paradigm shift in thinking. I mean, picking a career in art isn't necessarily the most stable thing in the world, I would say. And there is like times where like things are hard. Like, I mean, there's times working as an artist where you are kind of like getting no work and no one's calling and you're freaking out and that sort of thing. But I found a lot of it has to do with the actual mentality of artists nowadays. It's the art community as a whole is kind of, I don't want to say negative. I don't think negative is the right way to put it, but there's not a lot of people like bringing other people up. I know a lot. I would say most artists in the world, if you go online and you start looking through back in the day concept.org, even back like gone now, even as CG Hub, that sort of thing, and you're flipping through all the artwork and you're like, oh my God, I'm not as good as these people. What am I going to do? I'm never going to get any work. How can I survive? But the reality is there's so much work out there, and there's so many people looking for artists to do work. If you look hard enough, you're going to find it. Stuff is out there. And again, you touched on it, that anything that you pick up needs to be designed, created, that sort of thing. Even all that junk mail that's in your mailbox, someone got paid to design that, right?
Oh man, I love looking at those and just critiquing them, just for my own amusement. For like, is this a good marketing piece? Is this a good design piece? The most recent one that I saw, just as a little anecdote here, was for a cemetery. And so they sent out this marketing piece for the cemetery to buy your cemetery plot, and they were offering scratch and win tickets. So you could scratch and get a percentage off of your cemetery plot. And I just thought, maybe it works. Like, I have no idea, but I just, when I saw it, I was like, there must be a better way than scratch and win tickets. But, who knows?
But who knows? I mean, that may
Yeah.
work. It may work awesome for them, but
Yeah.
I guess you don't know.
I kind of chuckled when I saw it.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah, I mean, like I've kind of been dissecting things just kind of in the art world. Like I was looking at concept art.org back when it started in its infancy. Everybody was bringing each other up, and then it just kind of like imploded, and people started like attacking each other and attacking people's artwork and stuff. And I've seen that happen like all over the place. I feel like the art community kind of holds itself back. I mean, you think about like celebrities in quote the arts. So like actors, musicians, they all have this celebrity status, and there's really no like celebrity status for like actual visual artists and that sort of thing. I mean, there's a few people here and there, but a lot of the accolades live within the actual like art community itself. And you see people attacking other people with their style and that sort of thing. Oh, this person can't draw anatomy right. Especially, I see a lot of like hate in the comic book community about people's drawings and stuff. But for me, at the end of the day, these are like people that are trying to feed their families and keep the lights on, and they're making a living doing what they want to do with art and that sort of thing. And like no one goes to General Motors and bashes somebody for making cars wrong, or you know what I'm saying? Like it's I don't know whether it's just the mentality of artists, but we're already like self-deprecating people on the whole usually. But there's no like the high tide raises all ships. It's kind of like everybody tries to like keep each other at a certain level sort of thing. And when you're working as a professional artist, 99% of the time you're doing artwork for somebody else. You're not creating your own artwork and selling it. That's when I was in going through college and stuff. That's kind of how one of my teachers explained the difference to me between illustration and fine art. Is illustration, somebody basically hires you to do their artwork. So you're like the channel, you're the medium for which this artwork creates. And fine art, you create the artwork and you try and sell it. So it's kind of like two sides of the same coin. So one is someone pays you to create the artwork, and the other one is you create the artwork and sell it. When you think of the actual quote masters, that painters, Da Vinci, Michelangelo, they were all hired to do their masterworks. Like somebody hired Leonardo da Vinci to create the Mona Lisa. He didn't just create the Mona Lisa. Someone paid him to paint the portrait. Someone paid Michelangelo to paint the Sistine Chapel and stuff, right? So they're kind of, we call them fine artists, but they're actually illustrators. And even I've seen people being like, oh, you're just working for the man. You're an illustrator. You have no soul. You've lost your way and that sort of thing. And it's like, again, these people are just trying to feed their families and do what they love. Like, why is there so much hate? I don't get it. If we all band together and encourage people, especially new people, they just need that push to get out there. If I could offer anything to people starting out, I would say do it. You may not jump in and get a full-time job. You may not jump in and become a concept artist on the next Halo game in your first job, or whatever you want to do. But I honestly truly believe that you don't get better at art unless you're doing art. You can't draw better unless you're actually drawing. Or you can study the masters all you want, but you're really, until you put pen to paper or brush to pad or whatever you want, you're not actually getting better. The one thing that I learned when I was teaching was, as much as I want to teach somebody, I can't actually like take their hand and move it to actually do the artwork. I can give them the information. They need to process it, interpret it, and actually do the work. It's one of those things where you actually have to put in the time to get better.
Yeah, we definitely all learn by doing. I think we learn by experiencing. Like you can read a book and you can know the steps, but you don't know actually how to execute it until you execute it. And then you see, oh, That's what the book meant. I didn't understand it until I actually did it. And so you correct course slightly, you can try it again,
Yeah.
correct course slightly, and you keep going and you keep honing it in. Just like I've heard this analogy of how autopilot works on an airplane,
Yeah.
where it's just constantly correcting course a little bit, like half a degree here, half a degree there, but it's just constantly correcting course, and it's never on exactly the perfect straight line. It's just making these small mini corrections because the wind's blowing it around and everything else. But it keeps going that way, and it gets to exactly where it's meant to be.
Totally. I totally agree with that.
All right, let's wrap this thing up.
Sure.
Where can people find more from you online? How can they get in touch with you? Who would you like to hear from? Give us your details.
You can get on my website, www.shanemadden.com. Email is always good, shanemadden.com. Keep it easy. I would give a tip to people starting out. Basically, as an artist, especially if you're going to freelance, and a lot of artists work freelance. It's just kind of the way the industry is. They like switching up creative teams all the time and that sort of thing. But even if you're working in studios and that sort of thing, you are your brand. People are hiring you for your brain and your talents and your abilities. If your email address is nirvanalover97@gmail, you might want to switch it up to something a little easier that people can correlate to yourself by using your own name or that sort of thing. Just a suggestion.
That's a great tip. All right, let's wrap there. So thank you so much, Shane. I hope the listeners learned a lot, and we'll be back next week with another artist interview.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
You don't understand. We saw something and it changed him. That's what happens to all of us. Doesn't matter if we really see it or only imagine we do. We see something and it changes us.
With each interview, there's always one or two big takeaways that could really help you if you're stuck. If you want to grab that report and get the email updates whenever we release a new episode, head over to pencilkings.com/podcast-bonus.